Alright, as promised, number 8 here. Continuing on. Vaticanus and Sinaiticus not only disagree with the majority text from which the KJV came, they also differ from each other over 3,000 times in the Gospels alone. Yeah. But, you know, that's also true of the Byzantine manuscripts, the Antioch manuscripts that that eventually the Textus Receptus came from. There are variant readings in every Greek manuscript. There just are. Erasmus himself indicated that. That's why when he was putting together his work, which of course became the Textus Receptus after the 3rd edition, he would have to revise, and also he would have to struggle with alternate renderings, because even the manuscripts he was pulling from would differ in certain places, so he would have to make a decision which way to go. The King James translators recognize this. That's why in their margin they have the alternate renderings, and they will show that some Greek manuscripts omit this verse, like Luke 10:36. You know, in this very book right here, I could pull the margin and show you. It says most Greek manuscripts omit this verse. So, I mean, there's alternate renderings even within the Byzantine or Antioch manuscript family. So again, it's just kind of misleading to say this. But then another thing, if the argument is that Vaticanus and Sinaiticus are corrupted, you know, with this big plot, you know, this Roman Catholic plot, which I see in some other videos, to change God's word, you know, they sure didn't do a very good job. You would think that they would have got together and they would have conspired to make sure that they're identical, you know. Like when two witnesses are trying to conspire to cover up, you know, a crime, you know, we got to get our stories together. Anyway, it's just, like I said, it's just, wow. It's just poor, it's poor scholarship. Wow, that didn't come out right. Poor scholarship. And also, I mean, there's so many just outright lies. There's, you know, misleadings in these arguments. Point 9. When someone says that B and Aleph are the oldest available manuscripts, they are lying. There are many Syriac and Latin translations from as far back as 2nd century that agree with the King James readings. For instance, the Peshitta, 145 AD, and the Old Syriac, 400 AD, both contain strong support for the King James readings. There are about 50 extant copies of the Old Latin from about 157 AD, which is over 200 years before Jerome was conveniently chosen by Rome to revise it. Then, Ophilus, I guess is how you say this person's name, produced a Gothic version for Europe in AD 330. The Armenian Bible, which agrees with the King James, has over 1,200 extant copies and was translated by Mesrob around the year 400. Sinaiticus and Vaticanus are clearly not the oldest and best. Alright. This whole argument, which is, you know, there was a lot of lines there in point 9, is missing a point. Listen carefully. When someone says that B and Aleph, which is Vaticanus and Sinaiticus, are the oldest available manuscripts, they are lying. I don't think the argument is that they are the oldest available manuscripts. They are the oldest available Greek manuscripts. Because all these other ones that are listed down here are translations of the Greek. The Latin, the Syriac, the Peshitta, all those were where somebody looked at the Greek and translated it into another language. And see, and that's not the argument that's coming from the scholastic material. The argument that come from them is that Vaticanus and Sinaiticus were believed as being the oldest Greek manuscripts. Not a translation, but a Greek manuscript. Of course, I had mentioned before, you know, reading from the Bruce Metzger material, that the Bodmer papyri that was found is actually older than Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. And that was with P75 and I think P66, I think was the other one. But those are, you know, those manuscripts are just fragments. I mean, the P75, I think, is just a little fragment from the Gospel of John. I mean, it's just a little bitty piece. But they catalog it. you know, because it's part of something. So anyway, again, this whole argument is misleading. It's trying to paint, you know, modern scholars or whoever as being liars, when the argument here is not even formulated correctly. So kind of mixing facts to kind of paint a negative picture towards those who disagree. Alright, well, that ended the little points there about the Sinaiticus and Vaticanus. Next, he goes into facts about Westcott and Hort. From what I understand, and like I said, I have not procured for myself a first-hand document of Westcott and Hort, but I know a lot of this, there's one thing about here that he wants to mention. I can't really interact with a lot of these points because I haven't been able to do the research myself firsthand. Now, I can, just as much as he's quoting from other people, I mean, I could quote from, you know, people on the other side as well, but I wouldn't want to. What I would want to do is to go firsthand to the source, but until I can locate these books, I'm not going to be able to. But there's one thing I do want to point out, because like I told you, I had went to the library last week and checked out this book, New Age Bible Versions by Gail Ripplinger. It's quoted a lot of times, or used as a reference for a lot of King James only material. And in this book, he mentions this. He says, talking about Westcott and Hort, it says, the following information is well documented in Final Authority by William Grady and in Ripplinger's New Age Bible Versions, which is this book here. There are two sources of information I have found that show and document that Gail Ripplinger in her book misquotes and takes out of context these two men, Westcott and Hort. What she will do is she will take a passage that's found about Westcott and Hort, and she will splice, she will chop it up and then put it back together in her book to make it say something that it didn't say in the original. Now, like I said, I don't have Westcott and Hort's, you know, the original book to be able to show you, but I do have two witnesses that are non-related, and I will post one of the websites up here that you can go and see for yourself, and the second source, that are non-related, non-connected, but both of them are saying the same thing about the citations in Gail Ripplinger's book. That, if nothing else, would at least cast doubt upon what she is saying. So I think that would charge somebody to do their own investigation, or at least I would hope so. But what bothers me is a lot of people will find these books and these documentations and so forth, and they'll just, they'll accept it hook, line, and sinker without doing their own research just to verify if they're speaking correctly or not. So anyway, I just wanted to point that out, because if that's true, if it's true that the documentation that Gail provides in her book is not put together factually, then that means that she has perpetrated a lie. And again, we as Christians are bound by the truth, and we must reject lies, even if it comes from people that we agree with. We have to side with truth. But anyway, so that's all really I can say about that. Like I said, I posted up the link so you can check out some things yourself. So I think that this pretty much concludes this little overview section. The very next thing we're going to get into is start looking at the specific verses that are thrown up to show that the new translations are, satanic, that they're perversions, and that they're advocating, false doctrine. So we'll get into that with the next video. Thanks.